On this week's episode of the Jesse T Show, the amazing, mighty, and powerful Jordan Mendoza joins us. What's up, Jordan?
Hey, how are you, man? Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me on the show.
Unbelievable to have you here. You know, we've become fast friends, have a lot of things in common. You're doing some amazing things in your world, from career to building a consultancy to social media to being a dad to being a huge sports enthusiast and a sneakerhead, which is really cool. Wanted to share your story with the few people that haven't heard it yet, to tell the world a little bit more about Jordan Mendoza.
Perfect. Well, yeah, like you said, I'm Jordan Mendoza. Grew up on the West Coast out in Oregon, and I always like to kick off a podcast whenever I'm being interviewed and just talk about origin story. You know, I think it's important that you have context into the human I am today, and it's not because of me, right? It usually happens from your parents. So my mom was born in the 50s, and she was born with one lung. So she came into this world with some adversity. And when that happened, they told her, you know, you probably won't live to be 18 years old, and you definitely won't have any kids. She ended up having 5 boys and lived to 54 years old. So she did really well with the, hand of cards that she was dealt. But when she was alive, she was just super positive. She would never use that ailment as an excuse. Even though she was on disability, she couldn't work. She still hustled. She still figured out a way to make money, whether it was bingo or the dog races, you know, different things like that, to make sure that there was food on the table, you know. And one of the things that happened when she passed away is I was so close with her that I was pretty depressed. You know, I was down in the dumps. I was trying to figure out, like, you know, what am I going to do with my life? My mom's not here. You know, that support system was gone, you know. And I remember kind of having, you know, probably a year of being depressed and not knowing it, right? You know, you have the cobwebs that you kind of look through that lens of everything's just kind of numb, you know. And looking back in hindsight, it was tough, man. It was tough to deal with. But I just remembered, you know, I remembered all the things that she taught me. And I said, you know, it'd be doing her a disservice if I didn't, you know, really try to live out her legacy, which was, you know, be kind to people, treat people the way you want to be treated. She had a lot of humor. You know, I tell people all the time, she was like ESPN before it existed. She knew everything about sports, and she taught all of us. She made sure that we were involved in sports. You know, even if we didn't want to play them, she was there to support us and be with us during those times. And so, you know, I learned a lot from my mom. And I actually didn't meet my dad till I was 12. He is an immigrant from the Philippines. He jumped ship in the 80s, went out to D.C. Didn't actually meet him until I was 12 years old. My first flight ever was out to D.C. And when I tell you, it was an interesting experience because, you know, I grew up with my mom and my stepdad, who was a severe alcoholic. So, you know, abusive, not to us kids, but to our mom, you know, so kind of dealt with that situation. I remember, this is a story I really haven't told a lot of people, but I remember one day we were in the car at a grocery store, and my stepdad had like punched my mom. I'm like in the back seat of the station wagon. And I just remember reaching over the seat, and I was probably like 8 or 9, and getting him in a headlock and choking him and saying, if you ever lay your hands on my mom again, I will kill you. You know, it was that serious. I had seen it for, you know, 8 years of my life. And from that day forward, he never laid a hand on her again, you know. So, you know, dealt with a lot of, you know, situations like that, in, you know, some poverty. And then I go to meet my dad, who had really built a life for himself. He got remarried. He lived in DC. He had a landscaping business. So I'm going from, you know, super poor to now he's taking me to the beach, taking me to Six Flags, experiencing all these things. You know, meanwhile, my brothers are back in Oregon living this other life. So I kind of feel like I got, you know, 2 different childhoods, if you will, right? I got to see it through one lens and then through another. And, you know, one of the most impactful things that he did for me a few years into our new relationship was at 16, I got a chance to go to the Philippines for the first time.
Wow.
And meet my grandparents and meet my cousins. And, you know, you want to talk about life-changing. When you go to a third world country that still operates off of a water pump system, right, and basketball and flip-flops, like, your whole perception of you know, the world changes. Because although I was poor for most of the year in the States, like they were really poor, right? But they had so much love for each other. They were so happy. And it really made me realize how much that we actually have in this country. You know, how much opportunity there is in this country when there's people out there that are working for rice. You know what I'm saying? Like they're literally working to eat and to maybe get a soda, you know, and it was so interesting to see. But like soda, they sold it in plastic bag, like Ziploc bags, and then you'd get a straw. You know, like I mean, it was so rewarding to be able to go there. So I wanted to give just some context about my upbringing and the people that kind of shaped who I am. And so my dad, just a little more context about him, is he started working on the rice fields when he was 7. So, and when you're working back then, you are the machines. There is no machines, so it's you and a carabao, pulling you through the field. So he did that, and then he went into the merchant marines, and then he was a seaman, and he traveled all over the world, painting ships and sailing all over the world. So I really got hard work from him. He always told me, hey, I don't care what you do as long as you're doing it to your full potential. And then from my mom, it was like I got the kindness and the empathy and the humor and the love for sports. So you put those two together, and that's really who I am as a person. So
I'm glad that they did that. That we now have Jordan Mendoza in the world, man. So there's a few things I want to talk about there because is your dad still with us? Is he still alive?
yep, yeah, he is. Yeah, he lives up in Maryland.
Is the relationship still growing? Are you still connected, or has that kind of wavered a little bit?
It's gotten stronger because, I moved out to the East Coast in '03 to Georgia, and then in '05 I moved up with him. He needed help with his business. So we worked together. So from,
Wow.
2005 to 2010, so we had a good 5 years. And then we were up there for another stint. With the current company I'm with, I've traveled up and down the East Coast. So our relationship has gotten stronger, but I didn't really realize until like last spring that there was still some resentment there.
Oh,
Like you don't really think about it on the surface, but like kind of deep down when there's those moments, it's like, where were you? Like you could have at least called, you could have at least, wrote me a letter or sent something for the birthdays and things like that. So that's still something, but I really feel like I finally have kind of let that go and forgiven him for it. Right. Because I think, forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for us,
it
right?
is.
Because there's a lot of growth and healing that can happen when you actually forgive people.
I'm very. There was a reason why I wanted to go down that path, and a few other questions, and it's similar. I have similar story in my life, but the forgiveness 100% is when you forgive, you're the one who's holding the hurt, the feeling of abandonment, feeling of loss, feeling of unwantedness, and if you do hold that against someone, it really does kind of sour who you are as a person. And so I say all that to say that I've learned that I'm a very forgiving person for the things that I've seen and been through in my life. And there's people that have asked me like, how could you forgive that easy or that quick? And it's like, what's the alternative? I mean, are you going to be bitter? Are you going to lose yourself in the darkness, or are you going to continue to be who you are and try to love as many people as you can, And so it's really cool
Absolutely.
that you are able to not give up on them and able to see this other world from what you are experienced and to see where he came from. So was it hard for you? What age are you with your brothers? Are you the oldest?
I'm the second oldest. Yeah, so I got an older brother that just turned 40, so he'll be 41 in May.
Yeah.
And then from there it goes down. But actually, he remarried, so I've got 6 brothers total. So yeah, I've got all if there's 4 on my mom's side and then 2 on my dad's side because he remarried. So a lot
Wow.
of boys.
So how did they take it when you were doing this traveling, especially when y'all were really young and you were going from West Coast to East Coast? Was there any resentment from them because you were the one that got to go and they didn't? And like, how did you play that out with them?
No, I don't think there was. I think they were happy. They were happy for me, and it was kind of an interesting situation. So my older brother, his has a different dad, and his dad actually passed away when he was 16. I think I was, 13 at the time of cancer. And then my other 3 brothers from with my mom or from my stepdad, and he's from Palau. So you're growing up in Portland, in Oregon. It's a very Caucasian state, like predominantly Caucasian. And here's this white lady trucking around all these tan kids, so I'm sure we looked interesting, right, as a family going around. But like back then, I remember, like, I can't remember feeling like I was different,
Yeah.
but I did grow up in a place that was like where I grew up in North Portland. It was a lot more culture, a lot of Vietnamese and Cambodian and Hmong and Hispanic. And so to everybody there, I think it was just how it was,
Yeah. Yeah. And just so I'm understanding, so your dad that's living on the East Coast, um, it was your stepdad that was doing the drinking and doing the abusive stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. That's it. Yep.
And do you have any relationship with him at all anymore, or?
Yeah. Yeah. He's actually been clean and sober for probably now it's been over 25 years. So
Wow.
he definitely cleaned up. He's been in AA, hasn't missed an AA meeting forever. And that was probably on the third time my mom left him. And that final one, they actually did get divorced, but then they actually ended up moving in together, and he helped support her and stuff like that.
Wow.
So I think he learned his lessons, but that's, alcoholism's a real thing, man. And it's a
One of
tough
the
thing
worst
to
things. It's
break.
one of the worst. I mean, any
Yeah.
drug habit, any addiction is awful, but alcoholism is really unique in its own right, where it's brutal. It's brutal on the person that
Yeah.
has the addiction. It's brutal on everybody else. And for you to see that reprieve, it probably healed some wounds in a way. Like it's for him
Sure.
to give his life up to that, because my dad was a 40-year heroin addict, and I got to see him change his life the last 10 or 12 years, and it completely healed a lot of things for me. He became a really good dad as best as he could. He became a really good, we called him puppetee to my kids. And having that closure and that sense of relationship that I longed for when I was a kid, it made a huge difference, and then he passed away a
Absolutely.
couple of years ago, and there is some peace to it because of that rekindling of a relationship that I always wanted. So I'm always interested to see how it plays out and how people
Yeah.
go through it. Either that everyone's suffering, but either the one that they're addicted or that there are people around them, how they react. So now you've been able to feel both of those things grow and get to a better place. Your dad and you still have a great connection. You're still, he's still around and doing your thing, and kind of been able to plug into him there. What brought you back down to Georgia, where you are now?
Work. Yeah, it's always been work. So I've actually been with the company that I'm with for 13 years. So I've been with them quite a while. I started as a leasing professional on site, leasing apartments, and then got promoted to an assistant manager, a property manager, multi sites, and now I've been in the training department for 8 years. So been with them quite a while.
And there's something that's been kind of unique recently, where your skills that you're acquiring and growing, they've come to help that company, and they've realized like how valuable you are as a teammate. Where you're kind of like, it's important to be there. It's important to have that career, but you're also building something special on the side. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I think over the years, I'm one of those people that I was a terrible student. I actually didn't enjoy school. I was more like daydreaming about like what could I do after school?
All of
What
us
can I go
feel like
sell? What can I go do? And so, over the past, really, it's probably been the last 3 years or so, I've been like, all right, what else can I do? There's got to be more, right? Like, I don't know if I want to fully retire with this organization. So I like the fact that I can build something for myself. So a few years ago, I got certified through my company as a Myers-Briggs type indicator practitioner. So that's the MBTI assessment. It's the most widely used personality assessment in the world. And the reason I got certified is I teach a 6-month leadership program. And so, I have this great certification. It's a lifetime certification. And I said, you know what? Like, why don't I start offering these classes to organizations or to individuals that really want to take an introspective look at themselves and find out how they're wired? Because once you have that self-awareness about how you're wired, it really helps you in relationships. It could help you in your marriage. It can help you in your business, right? It can really open your eyes to a lot of things. It's like, wow, I don't just do that because I'm weird. Like, that's just how I'm wired, right? So it gives you this great perspective that if you don't have that, sometimes you can trip up a lot more, you know? So I took that. The first client I had was actually a church. 30 people had put 30 people through it. Everyone had to get to take the assessment first, and then you go through content to let people self identify what they think they are, and then you administer the results, and then people's minds get blown. And you know, I've seen a lot of growth in the people, everyone that I've ever walked through it, whether it's an individual or a group. Everybody really literally walks away and is like, man, that makes a lot of sense, especially when you have couples in the room. They're like, I'm so sorry, like I've been a jerk to you, but it's just how you're wired, you know,
Yeah.
it's just your personality.
Yep. I've done a lot of self work, and there's been Myers Briggs, 16 personalities. There's a couple that I'm forgetting. The one that I use heavily with my clients is the Colby Index, and that specifically talks about how people make decisions and how they operate. And for me, I want to be able to coach my clients to make decisions or not make decisions because they can affect their whole lives, people around them. And so I think there's a lot of value. Oh, predictive index was the other one. But there's so
Yep.
many of these programs out there for you to be able to realize that there was value in learning this and administering it, so to speak. And then also the flip side too is really fun. Like I remember one time the predictive index was telling me how I don't like routine and I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. And when I read that, it told me specifically like something I knew inside, but I never had put words to, and I never described it.
Yeah.
It helped me to describe and learn more about myself and how I operate in the world. And it's become a part of my life. So like when I onboard a new client, I have them do a 16 personalities, which tells them about kind of who they are, their characteristics, their traits, the things they like, they don't like, so to speak. And then I marry that with the Colby Index, put that together, and then now I can really coach the shit out of my clients and help them make decisions or not. So that also with being certified there, where else have you seen that work in your life, like whether it's personal or business?
Oh man, it's been super impactful for everything. Like it is everything, right? Once you have that framework, then it helps you make better decisions. Because here's the thing, you know, we are as humans, and for everyone that's watching this or listening, you are way more than your type. Okay, that's just one piece of who you are as a human, right? But it's great to have that framework because it allows you to give people grace, right?
Give yourself
When you know
grace.
this
Yeah.
information,
Yeah.
yeah, self grace, but also grace for others. But also, you know, it really helps you, you know, take a step back, right? And realize that there's some times that even when I don't feel like being this certain way, I have to be flexible.
Yep.
You know, you have to flex. You know, I'm highly extroverted. Like every time I've taken the assessment several times, and my extroversion is way on the other end, like almost off of the page. But you know, there are times when I need to flex to introversion. Like when I'm flying, right? I haven't done that in a while with the whole COVID pandemic. But when I travel, my headphones are on. I don't really want to talk to anybody, and I think a lot of that is because I know where I'm heading. I'm going to be talking all week. I'm going to be facilitating training. I'm going to be on 24/7. And so it's almost like I because I know that about myself that I'm going to be on, I give myself that kind of mental break. And even sometimes I don't even have music on. I just put them on so that no one talks to me, right?
Yeah.
And as a high extrovert, that might seem weird to some people, but for me, that's just kind of what I've learned about myself. Like you said, it's a journey. You get to start to understand certain things about yourself.
It's that self-awareness, and it's great to be able to know it, but then it's better to be able to implement it and practice it. And for me, I've always been an extrovert, but I've learned over the last couple of years, I'm an extroverted introvert. And the way that works for me is there's times I need to decompress and I don't want to be around anyone. And as much as I'm like, on stage with the business or with, relationships or with and the podcast, and I say on stage in the sense like I have to be on. I have to be like just firing on all cylinders. There's times where I need that mental respite to be able to just, whether it's do nothing or read something or learn something. And I've learned that. So it's good to be able to know that, but then being able to implement it and so that you don't burn out, because those people that you're going to train and those people that you're going to connect with, they need and deserve the best version of you that you can bring, but you at the same
Absolutely.
time need to protect you so that you can keep offering. It's like that old cliche, when the air masks, we talk about flying on a plane, which seems strange now, but when the air mask, the oxygen mask drop, they always tell you to put it on you first because you can't serve
Yep.
anyone else if you're dead, right? So I think it's good to
That's it.
know and be able to implement those things. Um, can we get in a little bit about LinkedIn? Can we talk about this and what you've done there?
Yeah, yeah. So it's super interesting how the whole LinkedIn thing happened. So I've had an account forever. I think like probably most people that are listening to this, everyone has created their account, and it was really used for updating your resume. It was like your online resume. If you wanted to get a new job, you make sure you go update it so recruiters can see you. It was more like a visibility tool for recruiters.
Yeah.
Well, last year, I think it was probably February, I actually got tasked with trying to find a social media platform for my organization that would be good for our associates, right? To learn, look, review content. So we looked at LinkedIn, we looked at LinkedIn Learning. I was looking at Facebook. I was looking at all these different platforms. And so I remember I came across a guy named Brian Schulman. He does a lot of positive content, and he, just through his content, he encouraged me to start creating my own content. It's funny, like sometimes we're like, all right, who's going to want to watch what we have to say? Who's going to want to hear us? And then you hear somebody else say, no, you could do it. And you're like, I can do it. Right. So I remember I posted my first video, and it was a video. It had captions. And I remember not really knowing how captions work. So I was talking like really slow because I thought that if I talked too fast, it wouldn't record the captions.
Right.
And so the video was terrible. I think like nobody viewed it but me. Maybe like 3 people looked at it, right? And I remember like being so concerned with those metrics until I was like, you know what? Who cares who sees this? Just keep creating.
Yep.
Just keep showing up. And so it got kind of addicting because, I've been doing sales and marketing 25 years. So I started talking about giving people free sales tips. I started giving people customer service tips, emotional intelligence, like all the lanes that I work in on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. I just started providing content, and the weirdest thing happened. People started watching. I started noticing my engagement went up. People started viewing my videos. People started sharing my content. Like June comes, and I had posted like something simple. It was like, make sure you smile at everyone you encounter today, because you never know what they're going through. What's the worst that could happen?
Yep.
All of a sudden, my phone like literally did not stop going off. It got up to like 180,000 views. I mean, just insane. So at that point, I was like, what? Like, this is a real thing. This could turn into something. Because the one thing that a lot of people don't understand about LinkedIn is the organic reach is super duper high, meaning, there's not a lot of ads yet. Ads are overpriced right now. And so there's not a lot of people that are purchasing ads. So you can literally create a LinkedIn account today, right? Just like start it from scratch, and you could post today using contextual hashtags. And there's the opportunity is massive for people to see it that aren't even connected to you. That's the thing. You might have first, second or third level people see your content.
Yeah.
And so the reach is very high. So I remember when I first started creating content, I think I had like 7,000 connections. Well, by December of last year, I turned around, and all of a sudden I've got 20,000 followers. So like people that are following me on the platform. I turned around last week, I just passed 44,000. So,
Crazy.
from I mean, and this is like, we're talking literally 2 days ago, it was 12 months that I posted my first video.
Yep.
Right. So if anyone's listening to this and you're like, hey, how can I get visibility for my new business or for my company or for whatever? LinkedIn is the place to be. There's 680 million people. Only 1% actually create content. And so what does that mean? Like, there is a massive opportunity. It's not too late. Like Instagram, like it's hard to scale up on that platform. Why? Because it's oversaturated with ads, and there are millions and millions of people that are there.
Yep.
So LinkedIn it's kind of at this like gold rush, if you will, that if you can start creating contextual content, right, that entertains, educates, and inspires, you can see exponential growth. And so that when I started to really notice these things, another interesting thing started to happen because I was creating content at scale. my visibility was going up. So people started DMing me like crazy. I started literally waking up with 100 direct messages. And so I'd have to filter through these. And, you get Bitcoin salesmen, you get random people trying to send you their YouTube channel. But the interesting thing I noticed is people started asking for help. They started saying, hey, can you help me with this sales training? We need a speaker for this. We need this. And I remember, Jesse, it was so weird. I kept telling people no, because I had this corporate role, right? I had this job, and I still had this imposter syndrome. I didn't see the value that I had until one day I woke up and I was like, what the hell are you doing? Why don't you start saying yes?
Why not?
And the moment I started saying yes, my consulting business started taking off. And so I had built, I had got a Zoom account, I got a Calendly account, and literally, if you have the internet, you've got a scheduling link, and you've got a Zoom account, you can literally run a business. So I started picking up clients in India, I picked them up in Canada, I pick them up in different states, and my whole business was literally a virtual business that came out of me adding value to other people, right? Because we all like to buy stuff, but nobody likes to be sold.
100%.
So if you can look at it from a value perspective, how can I add value to other people? I got DMs from people that I'm not even connected with, but because they saw my content, they reached out. They didn't engage once, no comments, no likes, no anything, but they have been watching. So that's why I always tell people, I'm like, listen, you're just one connection away. You never know who's watching your content. So all you have to do is, be consistent. I give people, what I teach my clients is I teach them a framework, right? The first thing is you got to optimize your profile, right? You got to position yourself as a thought leader, position yourself. It's no longer a resume where your about section is. It's a sales page. It's a lead page for you to position yourself. Once you've got that down, then you've got to engage with other people's content. So people start to see, oh, who's this Jordan guy? Oh, he's popping up in my comments. He's actually saying things that I enjoy. Let me see what he's all about. So, and then your profile views start to increase. Your engagement starts to increase. Your connection request starts to increase. Your following starts to increase. And then now that you're there, that's it. Now that you're there, now you start creating your own content, right? Talking about things that you're passionate about, right? Once you start doing that, then the leads start coming. Because listen, all these leads that I get are organic. I'm not paying anything for those. These are literally warm leads that come in. For anyone that's listening, would you rather have warm leads or cold leads?
It's a no-brainer.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Now, listen, I love cold calling. I could do it every day of the week and be completely happy with that because I did door-to-door sales for so long. I'm very comfortable with cold calling, but anyone would say warm leads over cold. And why are they warm? Because you've added value, right? And that's where some people get stuck. They're like, well, I don't want to give away my best stuff for free. Well, why not? They're not going to take action on it. When they start taking action is when they actually start a contract where they're paying money for that service. Then they'll take the action.
Abundance, right? Like the whole, there's enough for everybody to go around. And more than that, the marketplace and the economy, things change hands multiple times. So if someone has a client today, hopefully you can have them forever if that's what you want, but maybe they go to another consultant, whatever the case may be, right? So there's more than enough for everybody in the world, even if you are giving away your best stuff. And the whole old school mindset of keeping things murky and not sharing secrets, and that's gone. That's gone because it's too competitive out there right now. You can't do that. You have to add value. People have to fall in love with your message or your ability to help them reach a goal, and they'll plug into you. Like you can't do it's incredible if there's people that are watching or listening to this. If you haven't flipped from scarcity, which is like I have to squirrel away my nuts and like I can't share, to abundance, which is like here's a nut, enjoy. Like you got to bridge that gap.
That's right. Absolutely. And once you do that, amazing things start to happen, right? And literally like what we're doing now, the whole Zoom thing, like I was actually already doing that before COVID. So what happened after? The clients that didn't want to work with me, they started calling and saying, wow, like we're now seeing the importance of having a digital presence, right? Because they didn't value it as much before, but guess what they do now? They really value it because who's online? Everybody. everybody's online at scale. Everybody's on the Zoom at scale. And so now they're seeing the importance of having that digital footprint.
So a couple things, because I've been on LinkedIn for years, but I never, and I started using it probably a year or two ago for more content and connecting with people, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing to, you know, find people for my podcast, to have them on my show, and vice versa. I might go on their show. It's been great for my wealth management business to find connections to potentially have them come into my business as clients. It's been a great way to add value to people, and who can I share my network with, and how can I introduce you to XYZ that may help you. And so I find a ton of value in it, and it's an absolute must have for my life and for my business. So if I'm someone at any level, 1 follower or 10,000 followers, you mentioned a few amazing nuggets of what to do: optimizing your page, turning it into a sales page and not a resume. You talk about adding value by jumping into other people's comments and providing value there. Uh, what are some other tech? And one question I had before there is, I've been lucky enough, and I don't know what this means, and I just want to find out. When you have something that's trending in a specific topic or a hashtag, what does that actually mean?
Well, what that means is that it is being pushed to the top of that hashtag. So, for example, there are hashtags with millions and millions of followers. So I try to use hashtags with a large following,
Yeah,
right? So that if my content performs well and it's trending in something like personal development that has more than 14 million followers, that's a great thing, right? Because when it trends, it gets pushed to the top of the funnel, if that
exposure.
makes sense.
Yep.
That's right. So it's visibility, it's exposure. And I actually don't, I actually find out usually second. I have people that DM me and they're like, hey, you're trending in marketing, you're trending in sales, you're trending in quote, you're trending in these areas. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. And then all of a sudden I'll get a notification that says I'm trending. And I screenshot all those, right? Because that's good for my clients to see that I'm trending. If I have posts that perform really well, meaning it's got very high engagement or it's got high views, I like to show that to my clients, like, hey, this is what's possible.
Social
And
proof.
I remember the days of having 3 views.
Yep.
So when you get a 150,000 view piece of content, that's something to celebrate,
That's
right?
great.
Because there was something about that made people want to see it.
So what has been your largest view? Not that this really matters, but I want to give some context after you give these numbers. What's been so you're up to 44,000 followers. At what point during that scale from 7 to 44 was your biggest piece of content in terms of views and engagement and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think I probably had about maybe 10K, maybe 12,000 followers and 180,000 views
It's
of a post.
insane.
And
That's
now,
insane.
in addition to that 180,000 views, it got shared 76 times around the world.
Which is
So
where
it literally was the smile heard around the world. Like, that's what I call that post, right? It was the smile heard around the world.
what was that post about?
That's the one I was explaining. So literally it was, hey, make sure to smile at everyone you encounter today. You never know what someone's going through. What's the worst that could happen?
Yep.
Right. And for some reason on that day, that just really resonated with people. And so people kept engaging. And here's the thing, folks, for those that are listening, this is some more value for you. When you post, you don't want to post and ghost, meaning you don't want to post something and then just disappear and not log into LinkedIn. The first hour of your post is the golden hour, meaning the algorithm favors any engagement that happens during that first hour. So if I post in hour 1 and Jesse comments, if I don't go back and actually say, hey, appreciate you commenting, appreciate you sharing your 2 cents, the algorithm's not going to favor that after a while, right? It's going to say, well, this guy left, so we're not going to position this post to be higher in the feed, if that makes sense.
Times a day to post hashtags? Like, what do you like there?
I'm not really worried about times, but I am worried about, consistency for one. I always tell people, if you're just getting started, at minimum, you've got to post at least one piece of content. I try to do one in the morning and then one at night, so that I'm hitting, because I have a global audience. So I want to try to hit the audience in Australia, like when they're in their lunchtime, so you got to think about that contextually. And then as far as hashtags are concerned, again, you want to use hashtags that have a large following. I think the biggest mistake you can make is just like making up your own and not marketing it, because if it has like one follower, it's not going to really add any value to your piece of content.
Yeah.
So you want to use like hashtags like best advice, hashtag marketing, and there's a list on LinkedIn. If you type in a hashtag, it'll actually tell you how many followers each one has. And so if you're like a spreadsheet guy, you can literally make a spreadsheet of the top performing hashtags and make sure you use 2 or 3 of those in each of your posts, just to further your visibility and reach.
Consistency, context, quality, and engagement. Plugging in, adding value, helping people. Um, I've been impressed by what you've been able to do through that medium, and it's only one vehicle that helps support the whole organism that you're building. Right? There's so much that you're doing in through your podcast and through your consultancy and through your career and through just your. It's all about relationships. You talked about this earlier, where you're one relationship away, you're one door away from opening it to becoming what it is that you want to become, or helping people the way that you want to help them. So LinkedIn's been an amazing way. I have no dog in the fight. Like, I don't get paid for saying this, but it's been huge for me and my business, and I'm just getting started with it in my mind. So it's been incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and it's brought me so many opportunities. I've gotten speaking engagements, right? Like where somebody's like, "Hey, I love what you do. Can you come speak about this topic?" And it's really helped me as a person, because like now I have a keynote like just specifically for adversity, because I started sharing content about, in my life, there really has been 3 pivotal things that have happened that I look back at, and I think it's really attributed to my emotional intelligence. Because when you go through adversity, you get a unique perspective about certain things. So if you don't mind, I'd love to share these 3 things with you. So the first one was when I was in 4th grade. I got stung by 53 bees. It was literally the last day of 4th grade. We had a 4th day picnic at a park. I swung a baseball bat. It was like a movie scene. I swung the bat. It flew out of my hand, landed under a big Douglas fir tree. I went to pick it up, and on my head was a beehive. And so
Wow.
I'm freaking out. I'm running. Kids are running away from me. I'm doing somersaults. Teachers are running away. And finally, they took big coolers and dumped them all over me and started picking bees off. And
Wow.
so if I was allergic to bees, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? So that was a pivotal moment for me. Second one was when I was in 7th grade. We had moved from one terrible neighborhood to a couple towns away, and I didn't want to leave that school. Right? I was in 7th grade. Like, these are my friends from like kindergarten up. I wanted to be at that school, so I had to take 2 public buses. The first bus would stop at us in front of a 7-Eleven, and so I'm in front of this. I'm at the 7-Eleven every day. I know the lady Rosa that works there. My mom's met her. We set up this whole system that she would look out for me and all that. Well, I'm playing Mortal Kombat 2 like I always did every morning.
Who was
I
your
was always
character?
Raiden.
Scorpion?
I was always Raiden. Raiden was my boy.
Raiden.
So,
Okay.
yep, I was always Raiden. And so I'm literally playing Mortal Kombat 2. I hear the chimes of the door go off, and I hear someone say, "Hey, Daniel." And I didn't respond because I'm not Daniel, right? And then all of a sudden, my body gets lifted. I get shoved into the Terminator 2 pinball game. The gun of that game goes into my ribs. I get punched several times, handcuffed, and thrown in the back of a cop car. I don't even know what the heck's going on. The lady is literally looking at the cops and saying, "Hey, his name is not Daniel. His name is Jordan. I know his mom." And literally yelling at this thing, "Hey, you dumb bitch! Like, I don't care what you say." And um, he is a runaway, and he's being arrested. And so I'm literally telling the cops, I'm like, my name's Jordan. Like, reach into my pocket. I had my homework, luckily, that had my name on it. and that was kind of the saving grace. And when I tell you the look on his face, he looked like he saw a ghost. Like, he was like, "Hey, so we're gonna take you home." And I mean, we went through court. Like, my mom wanted to sue, and I had to go see a psychologist to see if there was any, like, PTSD.
For sure.
And I even remember this at 12. I said, "Listen, I'm okay. I know that people make mistakes. I just want this to be over." Like, that was how I was at 12. I had that awareness that, like, I didn't want to hold this grudge. Now, both of the officers got fired, like rightfully so. And but that's what happened. And again, that experience, it was a false arrest. They thought it was a Hispanic runaway. For one, although my last name is Mendoza, I'm not Hispanic. My dad's from the Philippines. My mom's Irish and Chippewa Indians, but I do have a look that, if you want to profile somebody, that's probably the race that you're going to think that I am. So they made a mistake. So that was the second adversity I faced. The next one happened
Real
at
quick,
19.
just for some levity,
Yeah.
did you continue to play Mortal Kombat 2, or did it ruin that for you?
Yeah.
Like,
No, I still went and played the game every day. Yeah. There was, it didn't change anything, and again, I think that I just always kind of had that ability to flip that switch. So the third one came at 19. So I had worked for a sales organization. You're very familiar with the sales organization. We were in the Bay Area, California. We were going to open an office in New Jersey. We were driving from in Wyoming. It was very early in the morning, and we're almost in 10 days. It'll be the 20th anniversary of this accident. So my buddy was driving. We had a caravan of 3 cars. He falls asleep going about 70. He
oof.
wakes up, overcorrects himself. We slide in a Chevy King cab and flip 3 times going 70. He gets ejected, lands about 25 feet away. We couldn't find him. When the truck stops, I actually, and I was sitting kind of sideways in the back. And so if you looked at how the truck landed, if I would have been sitting straight, I would have been dead. I would have been crushed. It was just crazy how it all happened. So I get out of the truck. I don't even realize I'm hurt. We're yelling for our buddy Jeremy, and then my friend Branderis is like, "What's that smell?" It was a very iron-like smell, and it was my leg. I reached my hand on my right leg, and it went inside about a fist deep. I had another cut on my left leg. I had to have laser surgery, got rushed to the hospital. Our buddy got life flighted. I had to have 52 staples. I had to relearn how to walk.
Oof.
And that was a crazy experience, And so I do a keynote on adversity because, our stories really they're not for us, right? They're for other people to hear, in the hopes that they would actually get inspired to maybe do something different or to look through a different lens. And I really feel like all of the things, the bee stings, the being beaten up by police for being racially profiled, to being in this accident, have really given me a different perspective on life, right? Like, I'm super optimistic and positive because I don't even feel like I should be here. But when I literally look at it from a deeper perspective, like, my mom, like, lived 54 years with 1 lung. So even though those things were hard, I don't even feel like I've faced adversity yet, if that makes sense, So, and perspective, my friends, is everything.
The tragedy, the strife brings perspective. It brings gratitude, and it really makes you thankful. I was on your podcast, and I went through some of the hard times I've been through, whether they were self-inflicted or out of my control. And I can tell you right now that I wouldn't want to change any of those instances, as bad as they were, because it really has led me to a place of abundance and gratitude and self-awareness to be able to serve and help people and share my story through that. That it's a catharsis in a sense. I've gotten to a point where I've shared it enough and I've told it enough. But when I started doing it, I was terrified to tell my story, from being bullied to
Yeah.
having a drug addict dad, to being into drugs myself, to witnessing my daughter die, my mom die, like all this crazy stuff. And once I found the courage, and through a couple different people, through David Goggins and his book Can't Hurt Me, and through my mentor and coach, they were like, "You got to share that story. Like, you got to tell people." And I'm sitting
Yeah.
over here as a wealth manager and investment advisor. I'm like, it's kind of taboo to talk about these things. And then I realized, number one, who gives a shit? And number two, when I started sharing that story, I started getting like DMs on Instagram with a post or LinkedIn with a post. and people were like, hey, thanks so much for sharing that. It's helped me this, this, and this. And then I was like, you know what? Let me go all in on the truth and tell people about my whole journey and like the things that I've faced. And number one, it's completely freed me as a human being. I have nothing to worry about. I'm not afraid of the fact that I got bullied for 4 years in grade school. Like I used to be shameful of that. And number two, it's bigger than me. My story is not just for me,
That's it.
like you said. It's incredible.
That's it. That's exactly it, man. And every time you share it, you feel that release. Like you feel that now you're going to help somebody that may be facing a similar situation that you faced, right? Or you've at least prepared them in case it happens.
So so much that you just laid down in the 40 minutes or so that we've been talking, give or take. Um, what is it that you're working on now? What are you working towards now?
Yeah, man. So I got this idea last year that I wanted to start a podcast, and so I actually recorded 2 episodes of a solo show back in May. I don't think anyone's ever heard it because it was just me talking, and it was through Buzzsprout, and I like to tell people this because I didn't know what I didn't know why I didn't know my why I didn't know why I wanted to start a show, and so that's why it didn't move past 2 episodes that no one's ever heard. And so when I got really intentional, probably mid-year, I said, you know what? Like I want to interview people and hear their stories and journeys. Like how have they blazed their own trail in business and life? And of course, since I'm a massive Portland Trailblazers fan, I'm able to do a show called the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast, which has a dual meaning. So that was like, okay, I can vibe with this, and this is a show that for one I'm excited to do, because my goal is to interview you know leaders of many different organizations, celebrities, athletes, and hear these untold stories and ask questions that no one else has asked them, right? So that we're getting organic stories from the heart. It's real, it's raw, and it can help add value to other people. So I launched the show on New Year's Day. So just wrapped up season 1 this past Monday. Season 2 kicks off on next Monday. Already have 8 episodes recorded for season 2, so I'm ahead of the game. And this is something that I'm gonna be in it for a long haul. Like when I tell you that if you would have told me when I started January 1st that I would have these relationships that I've been building over the last 90 to 120 days, I would have looked at you like you had 17 heads and said there's no way I would be associated with some of these people. So it's opened up a lot of doors. It's opened up friendships, it's opened up business, and it's opened up, giving a platform to have an audience of people in 45 countries in 100 days. I mean, which to me is insanity. So it's been such a rewarding journey, and I love it. I love the process. I love being the host and the producer and the marketer and being responsible for that whole thing, right? And because I would love to have people do those things for me, but I'm not in a position yet to do it. But I'm 1,000% okay with that because no one can take this away from me. It is mine, right? This show is mine. And so we were talking off air, but I just recently put every episode from season 1 on YouTube. So now I'm upping platforms. It's on every podcast platform you can think of, but now it's also available on YouTube. So again, for me, it's all about reach. How can I get my content in front of the most people as possible so they can learn from these stories of other people?
So, what were some of the biggest takeaways you got from season 1 for you personally? Like something that maybe turned your eye to something, looking at it differently, or changed, a paradigm, made a paradigm shift for you? Were there anything in terms of some of the stories that you were able to have conversations with these amazing people that kind of were like, man, and like really kind of changed your mindset?
Oh, big, big. I'll start off with episode 2. I had Heather Monahan on the show. She's a powerhouse, top 100 podcast, TED Talk. Her wrote a book, and her episode is actually titled after a quote that she says in her TED Talk, and the quote is, "Fear is a green light that means go." And man, when I tell you that really is stuck with me, instead of looking at a fear, we normally see which color.
Yeah.
we see red,
Yep.
right? Instead of doing that, it's literally reverse engineering what fear is, and fear is a green light and it means go, right? And so that really instilled confidence in me to keep going, right? To keep doing everything that I'm doing. Another guest I had on the show is David Meltzer, and that guy's really been super helpful with me, been mentoring me. He's been sending me, guests for my show. And one of the things that he told me, it really stuck with me. He said that I want to plant seeds for trees that I'm never going to sit under. And man, like super, super impactful, right? So I feel like I'm getting educated from my guest on the show. It's literally helping me as a human become a better version of myself and take their information and multiply it by sharing it with other people. So like the journey, and brother, it's just the beginning. I mean, 100 days is nothing. I'm a rookie out here. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like I've been getting so much value into me that it's literally changing me.
Yep.
Like I'm seeing myself change and elevate myself to a level that I never would have thought I could be at.
I love it, man. And that's how I view my show too, is I want to see interesting people that have a story to share that can help other people. And we collaborate in this unbelievable way of just sharing a story. And all of a sudden, like I have these amazing examples of just all different aspects, all different walks of life. And it's completely, in a way, that's the greedy side of it for me, is I get to hang out with some pretty cool people, some badass people that have done some crazy things, amazing things. And I get to learn a lot of stuff. And so for
Yeah.
me, an inspiration on that, when I started mine a while back, was through Joe Rogan and watching him, how he interviews some of the brightest minds in the world, some of the best minds in their field. And I'm an inquisitive seeker and learner by nature, that I was like, hell yeah, I can meet some pretty amazing people and we can help some people while doing this. So I'm glad that you're on the path. You're doing amazing things with it. If people want to find out more about the podcast, more about you, any of the things you have going on, how can they find you?
Yeah. So the podcast, I mean, you could just Google Blaze Your Own Trail podcast, and it's on every platform, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. It's anywhere you could find or where you consume podcasts. It's now freshly available on YouTube. So if you look at the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast with Jordan Mendoza on YouTube, I'm on Instagram at Jordan J. Mendoza, Twitter, Jordan J. Mendoza, LinkedIn, just type in Jordan J. Mendoza. You'll be able to find me as well. And I love to connect with people. I love connecting people with other people. So if there's any way I can add value to anyone that's listening, don't ever hesitate to reach out. If it takes me a minute to get back to you, I definitely will respond. So, and listen, I appreciate you having me on, taking the time today with your busy schedule. And I know we'll be connecting here soon.
For sure, brother. Well, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all that you do. I'm excited to continue our friendship and our business relationship and see where that takes us. He's the amazing, mighty, and powerful Jordan Mendoza. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.